Hello everyone, welcome back to another stream. I'll be sending out links here, so that's probably why things are going to take a little while to get started, but hopefully everything will be good. I'm just trying to refocus my efforts here, but I'll go over that in a moment. Come on. Gotta get this link for everybody. Last link here going out. Okay, there we go. So I've sent all of the links out now. Hey Damon, how you doing? I'll wait till people, like more people come in. How you doing, Damon? It was what I get for like waiting really late until doing a stream, but I've just been like chillaxing. King Chaos says hi, hello. But yeah, we'll wait until we get some more people in, just a little bit more, and then I'll go over stuff. For the first time in a while, I've got the Undertale Yellow soundtrack on, and for the background, I've got one of the scenes that I've been mocking up for at least some point, or I'd like to have it at some point, but we'll go over that. So yeah, the topic of today's discussion is, as I'm probably going to be repeating myself a little bit, the topic of today's discussion is going to be the added story that I'm doing for Undertale, or the alternate story from AAU that expands on just a little bit. I'm not going to go into every little facet of it, mainly because there are a lot of like little details that I want to keep hidden for the moment. But it'll just be kind of a session that I want with people to just kind of talk, bounce ideas off, and get things back on track. That's why I've put the title as refocusing, mainly because of I blame me grinding for so long, and then obviously with family life taking priority, I think recently having like a week or so off as well, just to kind of take a break after grinding again for the new version of the ruins, which have shown off a little bit. I'm just kind of like at the moment, so my brain is like all over the place. So actually refocusing and getting things under control again is going to be really good for me, because then I'm not sort of like all over the place and freaking out, because like the past couple of days I've just been like doing nothing essentially, apart from freaking out and being like, help, somebody help me, I feel like I'm doing nothing. And for anyone who's stuck around the project for long enough, you'll know that I absolutely hate the idea of doing nothing. I can't sit still and be doing nothing. I don't feel comfortable just being sat here. Everyone's like, dude, just chill, you know. So Damon says, I've been good making some more pixel art on Bricadia. Ooh, nice. But yeah, this is gonna come into play with things later on. I'm actually happy with this because Blender 4.5 renders this scene out pretty nicely. The only thing I'd do is give it like a little bit more lighting, but this is a really old scene as well. But yeah, we'll see who turns up in like the next couple of minutes, and then away we go. I'll even leave the link in the main chat. There we go. Right, I left another message there. Okay. So, assuming that there's going to be, like, only 1 or 2 more people turning up to this, if that, and maybe more people will see this later on, I'm going to get started, because we're, like, what, 5 minutes in. So, yeah, again, I just had problems focusing recently. So, I'm going to go over some stuff that I talked about with a couple of people, and it's going to be the basic outline for the runes at the moment, and just in general, the sort of, like, theme I want to try and tackle. We're going to be going over, like, why, how I originally decided that this would be a good thing, and yeah, hopefully we're good after that, and I can focus myself again, and we should be okay for writing stuff. So this came about, mainly, the entire project came about as a celebration of Undertale, and it's something that I've mentioned before, where it's like, before Toby did his Undertale Memories website, where you could leave memories. Hi Blair, thanks for showing up. Hopefully this will be good, and I'll be able to get some good ideas. But yeah, this started all before Toby did his Undertale Memories site, and the reason why I mention that is because it's very important. There's a very, very important thing to take away from the memories section. If you, I'm an ideas. Okay. So there's an important thing to take away from the Undertale Memories site, and that is that Undertale normally is something that changes a lot of people that play it, no matter what your age is, and it's normally based on the through thread for all of this is negative experiences that people have had in the past that then translate into them being reminded of those things in game, and then by overcoming them in game, they feel as though they've either grown or changed as a person for the better. That is one thing where if you've looked enough on, like, say, either Twitter or Blue Sky in, like, the Undertale memory section, you'll notice that is a common thing for Undertale fans. And I would not be surprised if I asked, like, members of the cast about that. They would probably say the same thing, myself included. And the reason why this entire project started to begin with is because I'd noticed that before seeing that site, obviously like 2 or so years ago, more than, and I wanted to create a personal story based off that. And a couple of descriptions I've used in the past for the entire idea of Immersiontale has been something along the lines of either Alice in Wonderland but Undertale, and another one I used was Black Rock Shooter, the anime. Specifically, you have this like other reality in which there's another character that is searching for answers and stuff and needs to find those answers to change for the better. But as a result, they have to go through a lot of like trials and tribulations, you know. That's the way I've always described it to people in the past, where they're like, well what's going on? The overall idea, again, is that the player character themselves, the one that I've got here in the background, obviously has their own mental baggage, and the idea is that by going through Undertale, that is then triggered like all of these stories that you read or hear of. And you get to see bits of that, you get to see, in abstract ways, you get to see part of the problems that they face and how the game affects them and how they overcome things. And the idea is that over the course of the game, you'll get to slowly see them change and develop as a character to the point where they're not the same person, obviously, at the beginning. So it kind of tells one of those stories that's very personal, but also shows you the additional bonus of the underground in full 3D, fully animated, so you get a sense of space where everything is. You get to see all the characters doing their own thing, going about their own lives. And And then obviously we have like the big fights and everything, but the thing that I wanted to show was the more personal moments where characters are talking between each other and it's getting really emotional. That's just something that I really wanted to focus on because not many animations do that. The only other one that I've really seen again, or that I'm really familiar with outside of say like X-Tale, that's more of a combat-based animation that's done in 2D, is What If Undertale Was Real, and that's more of a parody thing in 3D, in Source Filmmaker, I think. So it's not really compared to anything else. But at the moment, the idea that I had set up before what ended up happening was, I came up with the... I thought X-Tale was going to be something else this time. So, the way that I had this set up originally was the player, obviously, being part of the story. Now, the original narrative that you can even go see, like, parts of it from the trailer that I brought out, like, 2 years ago for the 8th anniversary, that shows the player character interacting a lot more with the world. After that, what ended up happening was when I started getting the cast involved, or more involved, I started finding more voice actors and stuff. I decided to put Frisk back in more as a character, because the idea originally was that the player was going to be going through this entire experience themselves, kind of like a Let's Play, and then you can see in short little segments that the narrative is not what it seems to be, that it's actually Frisk's journey. They're experiencing it, and that's why there's some weird disconnect between the player and the world, as is evident by, like, the characters calling the player a child when they're clearly not. You know, nobody really reacting to the player of sorts, and that really stands out and makes the player character be like, wait, what? That was the catch in the original, but I didn't think that anyone would, after a while, I didn't think that anyone would really like that one, because it replaces a main character. And I didn't like the idea of that when I went back to it. I was like, okay, maybe I can do something else. And then talking to Wally, Frisk's voice actress, and really enjoying some of the ideas that they were coming up with, I was like, okay, we can inject Frisk back into here, but we'll just transition between the two. And I've kept it like that pretty much ever since, because I like the idea that the world is still kind of having a little bit of a pushback, but we get to see it from Frisk's point of view as well. We get to see the fun, childish, kind of silly antics of Undertale mixed with the confusion of a player that's just like, wait a minute, what? This doesn't quite sit right? I don't, you know, it's questioning everything. So, what I was having problems with recently was going back and figuring out bits of this. Now, the idea kind of, it draws parallels with stuff that's already in Undertale. Like, for instance, in Undertale, we have, like, the story of Kara, who climbed the mountain for not a good reason, and hates humans. I'd argue and say the player character is pretty much the same at the start. There's a little bit of, like, meta stuff going on with that, but the idea is that we start there, and it's kind of a familiar thing that we're treading at the beginning, and then it's a case of changing them for the better by the course of the end of the story. But the thing that I was getting worried about was just, there are certain things that I don't feel like I can pull off well, like, for instance, like, transitions at the moment between the two. I'm still trying to figure this out again, because I think the original thing that I came up with was a lot of really cleverly shot sequences, either against mirrors or against reflective surfaces. You can see that in I think it's the 8th anniversary trailer, or some of the shots after that, where I've tried putting the player in mirror shots to kind of imply that they're there and that Frisk is there at the same time. I still want to do something like that. The only thing I can think of at the moment, especially for, like, the ruins, because the ruins doesn't really feature too much water, is trying to do the transitional shots between the two characters so you see it from the point of view, is either doing it between rooms or doing it in silly sequences. So like for instance, in one section I had an idea of having the either one of the characters falling down a pit in the ruins, because you have to do that at one point anyway. They fall through the floor and end up falling into another section that then they have to traverse out of again. And the idea would be a quick cutaway. So we have like a shot from behind them walking over this floor, almost Looney Tunes style, you know, where they do the drop in midair. But they walk over the floor, they fall through the floor, and then the next cut is the other character having their reaction. You know, and then they obviously progress for a little bit, because the idea is that again, they should both be experiencing this and having their own sort of like segments, but it's going to be interesting trying to mix everything together and make sure that both storylines are told along the True Pacifist route, which, to be fair, the True Pacifist route, while it is going to be that, I don't want to like come up with any names for it, but I would say that it was slightly flawed, and the reason being the player's obvious story and the negative aspects of that. There have got to be instances that are going to be a little bit kind of like, huh, wait, what? That seems a little bit off, or not so sure about that. But the idea was to kind of have this all sort of towards the end up sort of resolving itself with all this like reveal as to what's been going on. The ruins through to the end are going to be segmented, so I want it set up so that kind of like somebody made a description or like a chart of how Kara would react based off dialogue to Frisk, and I suppose you could say by extension the player. This was done a while ago, based off dialogue that Kara has through narrative. And the idea is that when the player and Frisk first walk into the ruins, Kara is very sort of like, human, I'm not so sure about you, but eventually warms up over the course of the narration. This is apparently shown in Undertale. I need to actually bring that out again, but I wanted to kind of do something similar with the player character, where it's a lot about like trusting other people, and being able to be themselves around other people, or monsters in this case. I want them to start out kind of a little bit guarded, you know, and not sort of open to anything, and then slowly throughout the animation we see them open up, become a bit more of themselves, become a little bit less paranoid and sort of very cold, as it were. So it's almost like they start off in sort of like a not totally a genocide sort of mood, but, you know, like, the way that I describe that is, like, with the genocide run, it obviously describes the character at the end as, like, cold, emotionless. It detaches you from the people around you, so you don't really care. The idea is to kind of start off like that and slowly have the character evolve away from that over time. That's fine doing that. Like, the ruins is going to be interesting because I need to have the character be both willing to accept help, but also be guarded and kind of like, what's going on here? You know, sort of everything is going to be a threat, especially with Toriel saying basically all the monsters in the underground want to steal their soul. You know, so it's going to be a lot of like eyeing all these monsters up and be like, what's going on here? You know, I don't want any like... I obviously don't want to do anything genocide related, so there won't be any killing of monsters or anything, but the idea is I want to skirt closely to that, at least like a mental kind of thing. So it's like, what's going on? Maybe I should do this kind of in a monologue kind of thing, because the idea is I want them to be a little bit stoic as well at the beginning, almost like a mystery. It's like, what's going on with them? And obviously, because they don't want to open up, there's less dialogue. You know, so it's more frisk at the beginning rather than the player. Classic says, "Hi Moody, did a full animation radio show with arm motions. We so messed up. So you did a lot better than me. My avatar handles also messed up, so you did good." Thanks very much, Classic. King Chaos says, "Personally, how I would handle this is that you can physically switch the model. No other character would react to it if it's visual. Just for the viewer, give you a chance to show whose emotions it is." The thing is, like, I think I've been looking at too much reference recently as well, because a lot of stuff that I was going over recently the other day, I was on about it in discussion. Hey, Sammy! I was on about it in discussion, and I was like, I can do all these effects, you know, to, like, transition between characters or something, when instead the original was just really, really quick cuts and very well-planned cuts. I think the problem is I was looking at all these effects last night and just being like, dude, I can try this, I can try that. None of them were working. And I was just like, how do I show that something's wrong? Maybe I can do like a glitchy animation thing in like Blender and put it over the top of the character. Didn't work. The old shader that I made didn't work. You know, so everything was going wrong. I was wasting hours on stuff. But yeah, I feel like if I was, like, for instance, in this scene, if we, hey Sky, if, like, for instance, in this scene, I wanted to swap, say, like, the cube for a sphere, as an example. Sammy says, "I thought I would at least stop by, I've been busy." Sammy, are you alright for checking this video at some other point? You know, after it's gone, like, up as a recording, just so you can be up to date? Because I figure you probably want to chime in on this. Hey, Sky. So yeah, like, my idea would be, like, we do a shot from underneath, which is the cube, and then when we change the shot to above, we change that to the sphere, you know, so that, like, you can tell the difference between shots and everything, or difference between characters and shots. You know. I just figure that way it would kind of work. But that's the kind of thing I was looking at. Chimes are ringing, says Sammy. Cubes are crunchy. But yeah. The idea being, you know, that at the beginning, having everything kind of slow and mysterious at least adds to the story a little bit, because we're not sort of like ramping up and just being like, "Hi, I'm this new character, I'm self-inserting," you know. Instead it's like, okay, there's something off here, there's something definitely off. We're not quite sure why, but we'll just have to wait, and it kind of keeps you in that suspense and keeps you asking questions. Let's see, I'm just going over stuff again in my DMs to Virus the other night and this morning, because Virus helped a little bit here when I mentioned about the ruins. Let's see. Ah, yeah. Some of the examples that I had for, like, injecting the player in, but not, like, fully, because the idea is you do it slowly over the course of the ruins to have the suspense of, like, well, what's going on here? There's clearly something going on. As literally having it only for, like, emotional moments that the player will react to. So, like, for instance, being told, "Oh yeah, you can take candy if you want from the candy bowl in the ruins," but it's like they don't see the sign, so of course it's like, "Oh, you could take the candy, but you don't because it's not yours," you know, kind of thing. So it kind of gives you an idea of how they are as a character if they resist that kind of thing and have a certain reaction about it. So that kind of stuff was going to be interesting to implement. By the end of the ruins, I want the player to be conflicted because of, basically, it's like Toriel showing them all of her house and letting them stay and everything and being nice, keeping them well fed, and then Toriel basically wanting to keep them there by closing the ruins. So of course, then that becomes a conflict of interests and ends up as a trust issue that then has to be resolved. Also, the sleep sequence in the bed is going to have like a little nightmare sequence detailing some of the mental stuff. Because I figure that's not intrusive in the main story. And at least gives you an idea of like what's going on and starts diving into the mental stuff pretty early a little bit. I also mentioned about the whole thing related to, and this is to Virus. This is an old one that you can actually see in the behind the scenes for the old version of the Ruins, was the player wanting to interact with Frogget and then being interrupted by Toriel. But the idea is they go to try and pet the Frogget. And then, of course, Toriel interrupts. It's kind of like, whoa, 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 I've been caught doing something I shouldn't, maybe? What? You know. Let's see here. Yeah, I mentioned a couple of the mental issues that I had an idea of. And that was given a hug emoji. An Asriel and Frisk hug emoji, so yeah. That's gonna be interesting. The only way I can describe that is just like deliberately lingering on certain shots for longer than need to be. And then those will all be explained later on. What is this album cover? Don't spoil players' development. No, I'm not. I'm not really. Hey, Lucy. Can't forget about that one Frogget that meows. Yeah, for anyone, like, I'm not going to spoil massive chunks of this. I obviously don't want to, because that's the whole point of watching the thing, is just knowing what's going on with the player. For anyone who's coming in now, obviously this is going to be a stream, so please, I encourage you, go back and watch this after we're done, just so you know exactly where I'm up to. It starts roughly about 5 minutes in, because I actually wait for a lot of people just to see who's coming in. But yeah, just as a quick recap, the idea for the Ruins section, I was having trouble figuring out my idea again because of me just being all over the place with lots of grind, looking after family, and that obviously being a really big portion of my time at the moment, and then obviously with me trying to relax for like the last week or so after going on a massive grind for the Ruins, which you may have seen a small section of that in the Never-Ending Determination video right at the very end. You can still see portions of both the new Ruins and the old Ruins, and the new Ruins look really nice. But it's like, the idea being that after I'd done all this grind and everything else, and I'm just on the story now, the implementation of everything, and getting the last voices done for cast, that's why I was really worried last night, because I was just like, I don't know if I can do this, because I'm like worn out a little bit. I'm obviously focused on other things, and then I'm trying to like come up with VFX based off like tutorials and stuff, and they're either not working or I'm going back to old files and they're not working. Like for instance, Sammy says, speaking of which, hello Jen, hello little one. She's in bed. Jen's still here. Should be going to bed in a little bit, but yeah, the little one is in bed at the moment. She's not feeling too well, but hopefully she'll be feeling better in a couple of days maximum or something. Let me have a cameo as Asta, Gasta's caked up wife. I know where I mess up is I'm using mocap on Blender, so it's classic with my VTuber software. It's why the hands are messy. It's definitely better, classic, if you're doing like VTuber stuff, export the model to Blender and then just record yourself doing it and just animate it in the timeline. But yeah, no, after going through a lot of stuff recently, I was kind of freaking out about the implementation, and then of course I'm like, I can't have this fail at the very last hurdle, which is implementation and story. And of course, with me saying, for instance, a while ago that that I'd had to redo the story again and the way that it's structured because of first coming up with it, then changing it, then taking it out and just leaving it as Undertale the 3D movie, and then being given more confidence by some users in VRC who were like, dude, no, we want to see what your original vision was. It sounds like an interesting story. This is your story, you do it. That gave me a lot of confidence, and I was like, you know what, okay, well, we'll run with this. Especially after that update where people just accepted the player. They're just like, yeah, Dave, we get the kind of idea that it's you. Where are you going with this, you know? So I'm a lot happier about that, because I was always, you hear me in a lot of the other updates and things, and a lot of the stuff, like, really early on, saying, if I don't pull this off the right way, I'm basically done. The community's never going to like this. I'm just going to get ripped to shreds, you know? So I'm actually really happy that people want to see this kind of story. Yeah, we still need Mad Mew Mew, Sammy. So if you're down for that, as long as you can do the shouting, you'd have to talk to Lucky about that, because Lucky can probably coach you a little bit on the shouting bits. But yeah, although you've heard Lucky's shouting anyway, because of the old takes that we listened to. I can yell, says Sammy. Yeah, Mad Mew Mew's. Yeah, you've heard, because originally you were the one that commented saying that that Lucky's take, because Lucky was doing a female impression from a male voice, it didn't sound right. It's okay. It's okay. So, for anyone who's just turning up, I've managed to flesh things out a little bit. But if anybody has any other ideas, because I want to go over some monster ideas as well, I'll just run through this real quick. Then we can talk a little bit about the monsters and the way that they interact with the environment. So it helps me get a really solid idea of how I want this to turn out. And then yeah, I can just get on with the ruins. So the idea for the entire story, again, just as quick as I can do here. The entire story I've always described to a lot of people recently as either being kind of like Alice in Wonderland, a little bit, but with Undertale. Or, if you're familiar with the Black Rock Shooter anime, then kind of like that in terms of the way that the player's story turns out. Specifically, Strength's storyline. So, if you're not familiar, then you won't know anything about that. If you are familiar, or you go and look it up, look at the storyline between you and Strength, because that's essentially what I'm doing, but in Undertale. The entire thing is just about escapism. And the name Immersiontale comes from being in such a really bad mental state that your brain just associates more with the pixels on screen, and it becomes less of a pixel game as you go on, and more of a 3D environment that you can just imagine yourself being in. So everything automatically becomes how it is in the 3D renders, you know, really, you should be seeing the pixels, but instead, because the character is feeling that they are actually there, they're immersed in the environment, therefore everything looks like it does. But yeah, basically, the entire thing is about escapism, is about mental issues and how to overcome them through the game. This is a thing that has been a commonplace thing with Undertale players for ages, where they will tell you that they went into the game not knowing what to expect, having a really bad time in their life, or when they didn't know who they were as a person, then by the end, they came out a lot better. That's the story I'm trying to tell, but from a much more personal point of view, while also trying to do things a little bit abstract, so I'm not giving away too much personal information, but I am kind of telling you a little bit about mental issues, you know, so it's a bit of a serious thing. The idea is that the player should start off feeling not full, like, as I described before, not full genocide style where wanting to go on a rampage and kill loads of monsters, but they should start off in a place where they feel incredibly cold, disconnected, guarded, as in, like, they don't want to open up to anyone, they think that everybody is a threat. Flowey obviously doesn't help this, the exception being Toriel at the beginning. Toriel is the exception because they give help. So there's a little bit of a, oh, okay, I guess I'll go along and see what this is like throughout all of the ruins. The idea is we go from that at the beginning to what the character will grow into at the end, so the entire story will be them changing. With the ruins specifically, the thing that I've got to do is try and do the transition between the player character and Frisk. That was the problem that I was on about a lot recently where I was like, how do I turn around and say, okay, they're both in the same place at the same time, but how to show that visually, because I can try making all these flashy effects that they transition between each other, but the thing is, I was failing miserably. The one thing that I've fallen back on today is the whole idea of camera cuts, either between scenes or at certain segments, to imply that this was shown off. For anyone who's just showing up late, I'll mention it. It was shown off in a lot earlier footage, and I even mention it. I show it off, I think, in some sequences where I'm like, look in the mirrors, look in puddles and bodies of water. That's how it was trying to show off that the characters are still inhabiting the same space at the same time, but the reactions that they have from the characters in the game and to the game world itself are totally different. I don't want any like flashing lights or anything because it's going to be bad for the viewer. I don't want anything too crazy. Any of the glitch effects that I previously came up with just don't work. You know, for some weird reason, even though Blender 4.5 makes everything amazing. So yeah, it was a case of, I think I'll do very, very choice cuts in camera footage, you know, like between camera shots to kind of imply that they're in the same location, while still kind of trying to do the mirror thing. In terms of, because that's got me a lot more, like voicing all of this helps as well, because it kind of reaffirms it and makes me feel a little bit more confident about the idea. But with the ruins in particular now, the last thing that I want to talk about is monsters, and that's because there are a lot of funny things that I can do with the monsters. There are a lot of interesting things that I can do with the monsters, and I was going to just do this as a short anyway, because shorts get a lot of views, so that would get me a lot of feedback real quick. But I'm going to ask you guys as well in here. We have all of these monsters that are in the underground, but specifically in the ruins we have Mygosp, who's like the beetle-looking thing that dances. We've got Whimsum, who's the ghost-looking moth character, who has a strange set of dialogue which is almost suicidal in nature. We have Moldsmall, except that Moldsmall's not in the animation because I don't have a model for him. We have Vegetoid, Lukes, and then obviously the main ones, which are Flowey, Toriel, Dummy, Napster Bluke. No, so those round everything off. For more common monsters, like Lukes, Vegetoid, Mygosp, Whimsum, I want to know what people would expect them to be doing, or what they think they would be doing. I've mentioned it previously about certain ideas. Oh, and Frogget as well. I forgot Frogget. Jen had a funny idea of having Frogget, apart from just having them swim around or just sitting down in the usual locations or in bodies of water. Jen had a funny idea about having a Frogget in a rubber ring, just chilling out. I actually liked that idea, so I might do that for a joke. You can add any hard mode monsters? I could do. Like, I can put Final Frogget in here at the beginning. That's easy. We don't have the other ones, though, so we don't have, like, Mygospel. But, like, some of the other ones I've come up with for ideas at the moment is a lot of the brickwork in the ruins is all over the place. And one of the funny things I thought of as an explanation as to why I've done it like that in 3D is for having some of the Mygosp as well as them just dancing, doing like a little dance group thing, because they're known to dance in the battle animation. Another thing that I wanted to have a laugh with is potentially have them carrying bricks almost like ants. So you see them carrying bricks as if they're the ones building or repairing the ruins. I thought that would be pretty cool at some point. I don't know of any other things for Mygosp other than dancing and doing the brick thing. It's like the same with Whimsum. Whimsum I originally kind of had the idea of being like a moth, so they're attracted to certain bodies of light, just not fire, of course. One of the things with the new ruins is there's a lot of fire. The idea is that Toriel has set up these torches and just lights them as she goes whenever they go out. So I wouldn't have them round there. I'd have them round like mushrooms or whatever, which I still have in the level. Apart from that, I'd probably just have them chilling out or sleeping. But then again, the idea with Luke's is to have Luke's sleeping or potentially putting eye drops in. I'm not so sure like what else I could do there other than have them like walking around in certain background shots. What's up, Jen? You saying I got an idea in the background here?
You should have one taking an eye test.
Oh my god, yes. That'd so fit in. So for anyone who can't hear Jen, obviously because she's in the background doing her own thing, have Luke's actually taking an eye test. No, like have an eye test like in ancient monster language, which is just ancient Hylian from Zelda. Just have that up on the wall in one of the areas. Just squinting at it. That would be pretty funny. Vegetoid. Vegetoid could be burying like a clam in the sand. Yeah. Like plant, even just with Vegetoid, it's a little bit easy because we've established like through the battle animation that they have some way of levitating or throwing food at you. And I think one of the things we got a while ago was a portal, because I said it'd be funny having them have the ability to open up portals and just throw food at you as an explanation for that. So it'd be funny actually just seeing them planting vegetables in like certain locations with portals. Trying to think. Yeah, vegetables the only thing the Vegetoid throws. It's that whole thing of eat your greens. No.
Probably mix it up with another character.
Let's see. Vobin says, bro, what? By flash what ifs, I meant flashback scenes of alternate realities. Oh, okay, I get you. Right at the end of the core, the player decides to kill one monster and not anybody else. No. This is one specifically that's having a no-kill thing, but is skirting around the idea of it. So it's like, maybe, and then obviously doesn't go ahead with it. I'm not doing any killing, for obvious reasons. Again, a lot of mental stuff. That's partly where this environment comes in. One thing last night I was struggling with was the intro, because I was gonna, and I've mentioned this for a while, was I was thinking of doing like some bit before the intro, kind of like as a way of easing into stuff and kind of outlining things, but no matter what I did, it just didn't work. I was scrapping it like mad the other night and just being like, ugh, this sucks. Next idea, no, this sucks. So that intro idea that I had is gone, so I will be using this probably as like the nightmare sequence or something like that, or towards the end, because I don't want to get rid of this. It's something that's very, very valid as an environment and as a sort of like representation of a mental state. So yeah, it's crazy. How to ruin the run, step 1. I'm just waiting for Lucy's extra post here. Reminds me I need to check the casting website later to see if anybody else has tried going for any of the other characters, because I want to try and get everybody cast so that it's all good. Because we're so close. We're so close. It's why I was freaking out the other night. I was like, oh no. I do not like feeling stressed or anything, because then that's where everything falls apart. That's why I was getting really wound up at the... if you've watched the waterfall updates as well, That's why I was getting wound up there, because the joke was responding to... Oh, I get you. If you watch the waterfall update, like in the behind the scenes bit, where I'm more or less talking about the development of waterfall, I just turn around and I'm like, dude, I don't like stress. This is really hard to do. I'm on a time limit, and I need to get it done now. So I just have to like dig in, you know, and just go with it. And it's really infuriating. So I don't deal with stress well at all in any situation. Sammy says, can't tell what mental state I'm in, if it's improving or not. I'm experiencing mania or something because I'm dancing for no reason. There's no music in my head. I had a laugh the other day. As a little funny, I went to Costco with Rachel and we saw the Harry Potter books. And I just randomly, if anybody's seen Oni Plays, you'll be familiar with just the way that Oni Plays does like the Harry Potter music, just like singing it all kinds of weird and not on tune or anything. If not, I was just singing it really off key or humming it, you know, like right? YouTube's probably going to copyright strike me for that. But I saw the books and started doing it for a laugh with Rachel. Rachel's just chilling out with me. We walked past this guy that was working at Costco and he's like, dude, are you singing the Harry Potter theme? And I was like, yeah, what of it? And I had to basically own it, even though it sounded like the most weirdest and terrible rendition ever. It was so funny. He just ended up smiling at me and laughing as I walked off. It was the most hilarious thing ever. Oh. But yeah. I think after this stream, after like 40 odd minutes, I think I've got a clear idea again of what I want of everything. I just have to like not panic. So now I can actually go ahead and start doing stuff. So what I'll do is I'll take the rest of this evening to just kind of chill out and do like another stream, just chilling out on video games. Go back and watch this one from about 5 minutes in to figure out like what's gone on and how I describe everything a little bit better. And if you have any other comments or suggestions or anything, please leave them on either the staff Discord if you're a member of the staff. If not, leave them in the comments section for this video. I read every single one of them because it's important. Oh, so yeah. Sammy says, if I can get time to nail Mew Mew, that would be funny. Because I can say I made him my own merch. You should totally do it. You should totally do it. Just go for it. But yeah, I'm going to go relax for a little bit now and not panic as much. And kind of get my confidence back a little bit. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Hopefully that won't be too far off. And I'll show you what's happened and what's been going on. So, until then, thank you very much. Goodbye.